So what's the real screener's take on Us? Well, I can tell you one of us likes it and the other one not so much. Get ready for a divisive take on the second film from Jordan Peele.
So like Lenny said, Us is written, produced, and directed by Jordan Peele, best known for Get Out. This movie stars Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Duke as the head of the Wilson family. Basically, what transpires is that they return along with their two children to their vacation home in Santa Cruz, California, and the movie mainly focuses on Lupita Nyong'o's character Adelaide, and we get a glimpse of her past when she was a child in Santa Cruz, and her as an adult when she returns back to this vacation area. She begins to feel kind of like this ominous presence, this coincidence, and then all of a sudden the family gets attacked by their doppelgangers, and that is as much as we're going to reveal, because this movie is a mind trip.
You know, going through this movie, I kind of felt like it was kind of walking the fence between a thriller and a horror movie and a comedy. That was kind of my issue with the movie, was although I enjoyed the comedy, there were times where I thought the comedy it went on a little too long, and to me kind of siphoned some of the horror aspect out of the movie.
I didn't mind the comedy. I thought that the comedy was actually kind of organic, and it actually worked for me, and I did get the you know, some of the scare factor with the horror. I thought that the horror was effective. I felt conflicted about Us in two different ways. One, a lot of the answers were given to us, were kind of spoon-fed to us.
Yes.
But also, at the same time, there was a lot of ambiguity at the same time. And so those two things didn't quite work for me.
Okay, so you mentioned some things that were spoon-fed, and I kind of felt like it was rushed at the end. You know, I really enjoyed the first two acts. You know, granted, yeah, it had a bit of an identity crisis, but I was still kind of going with it, you know. And then that third act, it just went a complete weird direction for me, and for me it would have worked better had they developed it a little bit more and given us maybe a few more hints in the first two acts to kind of make it, you know, believable. To me, some of the things that happened, especially the twist at the end, kind of made me feel like it was like eating empty calories, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the twist at the end kind of like it changes the entire perspective of the movie.
Right.
And for that reason, I feel that it's a movie that requires more than one viewing, because when you understand what is happening or this twist, then you see the movie in an entirely different light.
So I'm not going to speak to the political aspects specifically, but I could definitely see that there were some themes and some social commentary that he was trying to hit. But again, I kind of felt like he didn't earn it in that movie. It was one of those things where the movie was going one direction, and then suddenly he just thrust some things in there, and you're supposed to just make that connection, and you're supposed to appreciate it. I kind of felt like with certain things the rug was pulled out from under me, or that he presented some things but didn't really build it up to give us that payoff and make those strong connections.
Perhaps what happened is that he tried to incorporate way too much into the movie.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think that the different themes are clear. There's definitely some themes about the oppressed and the oppressed fighting back for a better life. But I'm much more interested personally in the human nature psychological themes.
See, that one is very well developed in the movie.
Yeah, because I think that the movie is a very strong allegory for fighting our own monsters.
Right.
And in the end, us being our own cause for our own destruction, maybe, and that we all have kind of like this inner demon, or whether it be fear or some monstrosity inside of us that we need to, you know, learn how to beat or control. Maybe it's very, very, very well done, very well edited and presented.
Yeah. Well, some of the things that you're mentioning, that it's clear that he made those points. Those points were clear in the explanation, but again, it was like I said, empty calories, right? They presented you with something, but it wasn't really of substance. There wasn't really much substance to it.
I feel like there was substance.
Well, I mean, it's like, just because he tells you that something's there and that's what happened and that's why, it's like, okay, but you didn't really build it up for me.
Well, I think that he's making, again, political statements and statements about human nature, and the movie is really, it works as an allegory for me. And I have to mention the callbacks to 80s and 70s horror films, which this movie reminded me of, because at times it feels like a home invasion film, at times like a slasher film, like a straight up slasher film, and I really, really loved it. Some callbacks to like De Palma and Polanski and even Shyamalan in there. Definite influences with the camera work. Not to mention, one of my favorite things about this movie, Mr. Lenny, was the music.
Oh, the score.
I love the music in this movie.
That's funny because there's one moment, it was when the little girl was being chased by her doppelganger.
Yeah.
And they were around something, right?
Right.
And then it was all screechy, screech, screech, screechy. And I was like, oh, God, that's...
Like even callbacks to like...
To me, I was like, okay, yeah.
Old
lame.
Bernard Herrmann Hitchcock score here and Halloween score. You can see the influences there, but the movie presented the musical score at very appropriate moments.
Yeah, they did. I guess that was the only part I kind of had an issue with. But yeah, for the most part, it was a good score. Okay, so let's talk about the characters and the acting in this movie. We all know that Lupita Nyong'o is an Academy Award-winning actress, and she just backs it up tremendously in this movie. In fact, Oscar-worthy, but she probably won't get it because it's in the horror genre. But man, was she amazing!
I mean,
playing two different characters.
That's right.
So differently and
so differently.
It resonated.
She is so creepy at times, yet so emotionally vulnerable.
Right. Her range
portrays a range that is amazing. Actually, now that you mention it, everybody does a great acting job.
Yeah,
those kids do a great acting job.
I was going to say the daughter
and their doppelganger parts do a great job.
Right, and that's not easy to do. I mean,
it really isn't. But
Winston Duke was funny. He acted as a square, and I thought he was comical. The writing was good. His comedy wasn't, out of place or anything like that. Right. It was nice. I really enjoyed it. So how do we ultimately feel about this movie in terms of reels? Well, my prediction is that we're going to be off by the standard half reel because, even though I didn't really enjoy it as much as he did, still a really good movie. Like I said, the first two acts, it kind of felt like I was laughing more than I got chills, but then it completely turned into a thriller horror to that last act, so that kind of saved for me. The twist I had conflicting feelings about, but the more I let it percolate, the more I was like, okay, I get it, and I appreciate that. Like I said, the biggest thing for me wasn't so much that the comedy went a little too long. The biggest thing was how when they had this massive explanation, I was like, wow, that just kind of came out of nowhere, and I poked some holes in it, and I was like, logistically, it doesn't seem like it works. So, I will give this movie 4 reels out of 5. Almost gave it 3.5, but like I said, I let it simmer and bumped it up.
Well, you're absolutely right about our reels being off because, of course, I am going to give this movie 4.5 reels. I would have given it 5 because I consider this movie to be as close to a horror masterpiece as horror masterpieces can possibly get. It's just refreshing to see someone putting thought and depth and so many metaphors and just showing you this kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde story, an updated version of that, if you will, in a very unique way. The suspense, the music, the camera work, the acting, all top-notch. So I highly recommend you watch this in the movie theater. It is definitely a mind trip. And
funny.
If you like our reviews, hit us up on Instagram, real.screeners, and Facebook @realscreeners.
And don't forget to comment down below, guys. A lot of people are loving this movie, but I'm curious, are there people like me who kind of think, good, but not as great as some others might think?
Probably not. Probably everybody likes this movie.
All right, and thanks again always to the Alamo Draft House. Great service, fantastic movies.
And as always, hit that subscribe and bell button if you like our reviews, and watch us next time for some more real takes on movies.
Us. You were not expecting that, right? Prepare for a divisive... prepare photon blasters.
This movie stars Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Churchill, Duke Winston.
The Duke brothers.
So like Lenny said, Us is directed, produced, and written by a goat.
Or a rabbit. Lupita Nyong'o. We already know.